So here we are. Christmas Eve morning. Good Christmas Eve morning, everyone. So all the gifts are purchased, right? The presents are wrapped and under the tree. The baking is done. Breathe, breathe. You made it. You're still here. Oh my gosh. Now there's only one more thing to do, right? And that is tonight you get all nestled, right? All snug in your beds and just wait it out, you know. We are continuing the theme for December of the High Watch of Oneness, and today's talk is Bless Us All. Bless us all, no exceptions. Nobody is excluded. Since we are one, you heard Paul pray, we are one. This is our theme for the month, to acknowledge that we are one. There is one life, and we bless this life. It is the life of spirit. It is expressing itself through us. It is living its life through us. And so we must bless all. If we bless ourselves, we bless all, because it is just another aspect of the one life. The one life of God, individualizing itself as all life everywhere. You know, we know the Christian faith and the Jewish faith, in Islam, and even atheists and everything in between. We know all of it. It is the life of spirit, individualizing, regardless of faith traditions or no faith tradition at all. We know that we are all the same at the root. We know that that source energy that we all are, we all share in, is that one life. It is that ground of all being. You know, in fact, you have the Christianity and Judaism and Islam all come from the same root, right? They all come from Abraham. They are the Abrahamic faiths. And, and in fact, Judaism and Christianity is mentioned in the Quran as, we're all mentioned as peoples of the book. Isn't that wonderful? So they recognizes the one life through and as us being reinforced by that spiritual connection that we were all given revelations of God. We were all given that one idea, the one source, the one truth, that there is just this one life. In the Eastern traditions, they called it Brahman, right? The ground of all being. And what we know is that is the truth for us, regardless of faith tradition or no faith tradition at all. We all spring from that same source energy. We are one. And every faith tradition has its own narrative. Every faith tradition has its own prophet, hero, savior. And the reason why these stories are so compelling is that they speak to us about our story, because we are that. It is our divine path to live the life of spirit and form. Ernest Holmes said this. He said, God, the divine Father, never had only one son. The Son is being born at every reason, every season, every place, throughout all races and throughout all nations. Every birth is a divine event. Every conception is immaculate. Every child who is born into the world represents the Son of the eternal Father. And so you see these stories repeated over and over throughout history. Attis and Horus and Dionysus and Zoroaster and Heracles and Romulus, Odysseus, and they all predate Jesus. And they all have the same story. It is like we sit around the fire, you know, the ancient peoples that we were. We sit around the fire and we retell these same stories over and over. They were the heroes and the saviors of their time and in their tribe, to remind those people who they were. Just as our prophet stories and our savior stories and our hero stories of today are meant to remind us of who we are. So this morning is about a particular prophet, right? This morning's story is about Jesus. And it begins just like that popular movie begins. A long time ago, in a Galilee far, far away. Foretold by the prophet Isaiah some 700 years before Jesus' birth. Isaiah represents that higher thought in us, the earliest recognition within us that there is more to life than the material world or the creature comfort. The Isaiah within us holds us to this realization and waits in silence for the truth that there is more life, it waits for us to awaken to that truth, for that fuller expression of life through us. And Mary in the story, Mary represents divine love. Perfect love that goes beyond all boundaries, encompasses all life, and recognizes the oneness. She is the representation of perfect and divine love that flows through us and as us. The heart that is filled with God's love sees only the good and calls it forth in all of life. And just as Mary represents divine love, Joseph represents divine wisdom. We have this perfect balance of the love and the law, as Ernest Holmes would say, right? Mary as the love and Joseph as the law. Divine love receives that direct revelation. Mary was visited by an angel. So divine love receives that direct revelation to speak of this impending birth, whereas Joseph, who was divine intelligence, his is more indirect, isn't it? He has a dream, and in the dream it is revealed to him what his role is. So this means to us that idea of spiritual enlightenment comes more directly through intuition than intellect. We can't think our way there, that it must be revealed through the heart. So Mary and Joseph continue their journey to Bethlehem. And Bethlehem in Hebrew means house of bread, signifying divine substance. And what we know about that divine idea, that pregnancy, is that it must unify with divine substance, that spiritual essence that underlines all form in order for it to be manifest in the world. But what does it mean that there was no room at the inn? Right? What does that mean, you know? I think the world had no interest in things of the spiritual nature. There's no room at the inn. There's no room for the divine idea to come through in a world that has no interest in the things of spirit. So it moves to the stable, which is the more natural environment. The stable is that divine idea of nature, a spirit creating itself in form, in all form. So there are the animals. It is authentic, it is unpretentious with its spirituality of nature. And the angels represent that still small voice within us, yes? Those angels that have come to make that announcement, I bring you tidings of great joy. It is that still small voice within us. It reveals that we are one with all. It announces this birth that is our birth as well, the universal story of Jesus, but the personal story of our birth in form. And so it reveals that we are one with all, and it allows us to drop the illusion of separation, that there's us and anything else. The angels are the ones who really do hold the high watch of oneness, right? They announce, they proclaim, and they hold the high watch for all of us. And the shepherds represent our own human nature. They're not our highest consciousness, but they are willing to surrender so to allow that higher consciousness to flow through us into the world. They are willing to surrender to that greater yet to be that we know within our hearts we are. And so our human self gives way for the divine to come into form. And the wise men, that inner wisdom, that is the wisdom of the universal. That is the universal, that's our highest mind. And the gifts that are given, well, they represent the gifts that we are always given in life. The riches of spirit, which is the gold. The beauty of spirit, which is the frankincense. And the eternity, the eternality of spirit, which is myrrh. And all of this leads to the birth of Jesus universally, and our birth individually. It is a story of us, always. And so at Christmas time, we talk about the birth of Christ, and yet in truth, Christ was not born 2,000 years ago, because to say Christ was born is to say that it didn't exist prior to that. And that would not be true, because the Christ consciousness is a principle. It's not a person, it's not a personality, it's a principle. It is God in form. It is the perfect idea of the human within the mind of God. So that Christ consciousness is eternal. It always has been, it always will be. And that which is eternal has no beginning, has no ending. So Jesus, the Christ, the anointed one, the way shower, the master teacher, is an expression of the Christ principle, just like you are an example of the Christ principle, just like you are an example of the one mind of God in form, just like we all are. In Colossians it says, even the mystery which had been hidden for ages from generation to generation, but is now made manifest, to whom God would make known what is the riches of the glory of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Jesus may have come into this world fully awakened to his inner divinity, fully aware of the Christ consciousness within him. And it is his birth that we celebrate tomorrow. But the wonder of Christmas is this. As we look upon Jesus, the baby, or we look upon Jesus, the man, who prepared for 30 years for a 3-year ministry, we see the living, breathing example of a fully self-actualized life. We see spirit fully evolved as a human, in a human, through human. And that is the miracle of Christmas. Happy Christmas, my dears. Bless us all.